Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Kesha record, Gag Order. Kesha is perhaps second only to Carly Rae Jepsen as an ex-mainstream pop star that went on to become a critical darling thanks to more personal songwriting, as well as a step away from the creative restrictions of their original label. And some people even said, hey, that early stuff is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not bad. And while I don't agree with that about Carly Rae, I absolutely agree with that about Kesha. Your Love Is My Drug's a banger. Are you people insane? You don't actually like that? That's a great song. I digress. While artists like Carly Rae Jepsen went on to develop their sounds more via embracing modernized pop music and dance music with some electronic influences sprinkled in there, Kesha went on to develop her sound in a way that was more focused on a personal degree of songwriting and lyrical style, and a lot of those lyrics came from places of emotional turmoil, trauma, and general suffering. While I think most people are aware of everything surrounding Kesha and her life story, I'm not going to recap it here anyway, because even if it was some obscure folktale, I would still not feel comfortable talking about someone else's story of being abused. So if you want to know more about it, or you're completely unaware of this somehow, then just read about it on your own, because I'm not the right person to tell you about someone else's life story. What I can tell you about, however, is the album itself, and I can analyze it from an artistic perspective. And I have to say that Gag Order is another incredibly interesting album from Kesha, as well as arguably her best to date. A lot of topics here relating to self-hate and self-love, self-loathing, and getting better into a better mental state are all explored here, and obviously those are all very heavy emotional topics, but she writes about them with both a bluntness and nuance that mixes together into something that should be oxymoronic, but ultimately does indeed exist, and it feels very powerful in the end. I mean, one second she's waxing poetic about things that she's gone through, and the next second she's directly in the listener's face about all the suffering that she's experienced in her life, and it's difficult to not admire and appreciate both ends of that spectrum. Furthermore, Kesha's artistic ambition has continued to grow since she has distanced herself from the earlier years of her career with the more straightforward dance pop sound that she first became famous for, as she really does explore a variety of genres here, and that really ranges from a number of different sounds, such as the balladry found on tracks like Hate Me Harder, to the experimental, progressive, artsy, dance pop, slightly industrial, psychedelic, whatever the fuck you want to call it, song that is Eat the Acid, a major highlight on this album. Really, this entire record just feels downright trippy at times, in the best way possible. In the end, Gag Order feels like Kesha taking her time to really craft a record that is representative of every single niche and corner of her musical and creative abilities, and doing so successfully. The fact that she can just so casually bounce around between very sensual whisper singing and attitude-filled talk singing, among other vocal delivery styles, only further adds to the somewhat surreal feeling of the album, as she does so with an incredibly casual aura around her that just feels strangely natural in a way that it almost feels like she shouldn't be capable of doing so in the way that she does. With that being said, don't let it be misunderstood from me that I think that Gag Order sounds disjointed as an album. It absolutely does not. It more so sounds like you fuse the brains of a bunch of different incredibly experimental artists together in the modern day alongside another brain of an artist who's a mainstream pop artist, and that final result was the brain that Kesha had when she was making this record. I know that's an awful analogy, but it's really the best that I can think of here. This album feels Frankensteinian in nature, yet at the same time it all works perfectly. It's a bunch of different sounds jumbled together into one singular piece of art, but at the same time it all feels fluid. It's kind of something that shouldn't make sense. That isn't to mention that Rick Rubin's production here is fantastic, immaculate as always. He is a legend for a reason, and the more pristine qualities of his production work very nicely ground a record that could have easily trailed off into surreal qualities. But you know what? This album sounds like a pop album that just so happens to be incredibly trippy, psychedelic, left field, out there, insert synonym here in nature. Trying to tell the story of Kesha and everything that has happened to her over the course of her career would be offensive to her and inappropriate, if I'm being totally honest, as I am not her. I think that goes without saying. But at the same time, it is easy to see how these experiences translated into the making of Gag Order. If you are familiar with Kesha and her story, then, well, I think that it goes without saying that if anybody deserves to make an album like this, it's her. Kesha is understandably hurt and pissed off by everything that stands in her path throughout the entirety of this record, and all of this seething rage and sorrow results in an album that is only capable of being made in the context of an artist's pain, and it feels weird to say that I could honestly compare this record to a similar album, say Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division, where the artist in question is going through a huge amount of suffering that results in a brilliant piece of art, but I genuinely can. Gag Order is uncomfortable to listen to at times, and it's not something that I think most people will return to. In fact, for most people, I think this will be a listen to once or twice and then done kind of record. But at the same time, it's also an album that has impressed me more than I ever expected, and that's saying something considering Kesha has been on an uphill trajectory as a musician for quite a while at this point. I'm going to give this record 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.